I'm Alex Scavone, and the title of my presentation is Woman Up. So I'd like to start by having all of you imagine that you're a prospective student on a tour of Vanderbilt. But what if your tour guide, instead of pointing out, here's the dining center where you're going to eat all of your meals alongside of all your new friends, or here are the commons where you're going to live your freshman year, instead said, here's where someone will try to marginalize you based solely on your gender. Or here's where you're going to listen to a student make a rape joke under his breath in class. Or here are the residence halls, where you live, sleep, and possibly be sexually assaulted. It would be pretty shocking. But it seems like every day I read another story about a young woman detailing her experience about being sexually assaulted on a college campus. Now, as a senior, a few weeks away from graduation, I'm able to look back in hindsight of what my dreams of what I thought college would be like and sort of realize that the colleges have a lot of issues that I didn't necessarily think they would have. That the institutions that promote higher learning and promote equality for genders and try to maintain a 50-50 ratio of men to women actually have a lot of issues dealing with gender and sexual identity of their students. So I'm going to begin by sort of talking about my own experience with these issues as a woman on campus, before sort of talking more generally about these issues, how they affect the Vanderbilt campus as a whole, before finally trying to suggest some real solutions that I think could help improve the situation at Vanderbilt. So first I'm going to talk about my personal experience. So when I look back about my time at Vanderbilt, I think about the close friends that I've made. Hi. I think about the achievements I've accomplished during my time here, and I think about the enriching academic and extracurricular experiences that I've had here. The organization that I was most heavily involved with was actually VSEPT, and sometimes when I'm feeling nostalgic, I like to look back on my VSEPT application from when I myself was a first-year student, and my answer to the question, why did I want to be a VSEPTer? And here's an excerpt of what I said. I said that within my first month at Vanderbilt, I had become a victim of anonymous online harassment, cyberbullying, and cyberstalking via the notorious gossip website College ACB. The reason I wanted to become a VSEPTer was because this experience made me feel humiliated, it made me feel powerless, and it made me feel objectified. I really felt a lot of sadness and anger at the experience, but I wanted to sort of fight back, and I wanted to help make this campus a better experience, and I wanted to prevent other students from going through the experiences that I myself went through. But what I'm here to really talk about is that my experience of sexual harassment is not an isolated experience on this campus. Many of our peers have also been mocked, harassed, or even sexually assaulted because of their gender on this campus. These t-shirts are actually from an event that happened on campus this year, in which women came together to sort of create t-shirts to talk about their experiences being sexually assaulted. And I think that many of us can probably agree this issue has become very pertinent on campus this year. I think that issues of power-based personal violence in the past few years sort of were dealt with a sense of a passive contempt on campus. But after the alleged incident involving the Vanderbilt football team, we've had the panels hosted by the provost about sexual assault on campus. And we've also had a Title IX complaint filed against Vanderbilt University by a group of female students. So it's definitely really gaining a sense of momentum at Vanderbilt. So I want to talk about it with a broader lens. So there's an organization called 1 in 4 that really focuses on the statistics of sexual assault. And their main statistic that they really like to drive home, that I'm sure many of you have heard, is that 1 in 4 college women will be sexually assaulted while she is, but from when she's 14 to when she's a student on a college campus. And the next statistic I have is pretty shocking, but I think what I'm going to try to sort of address is Vanderbilt's culture, particularly this idea that we have a thriving Greek community and we have these SEC sports, and at best they can enhance the collegiate experience, but at worst they can also contribute to a very hyper-masculine environment that can be condescending towards women or degrading of female individuals, as well as males who may not fit this mold, and they can also pose a lot of consequences to males who do participate and actually there's a negative effect that happens to them as well. So this is data that originally started being collected in the 1990s, but recently has been updated in 2004. They actually think that fraternities may be involved in about 50 to 70% of gang rapes that happen on college campuses. These are very rare events, but what they found also that I found particularly interesting is that the sports teams that are involved are usually exclusively team sports, so it's never like the swimmers, it's always the team sport, and it's almost always the star sport on a campus. So when we have these, these male-dominated organizations that we tend to glorify, it almost sort of excuses behavior and allows events to maybe spiral out of control to something that's, that many of us would find, I think all of us can agree, it's a very despicable and aggressive act because of the environment in which the students are participating in. So just to bring that sort of like larger statistic back to an issue that I have with Vanderbilt, this shirt I found in the Vanderbilt bookstore last semester, and it really bothered me. I think that it promotes strength and physical strength and toughness as being something that's masculine, and that's not something I necessarily agree with. So I reached out first to the bookstore manager and then to the executive director of business services, and this is what the response I got, which is that this expression is used in athletics and such. And that the bookstore serves a varied population with diverse interests and opinions. So that's why they think this is appropriate. But to me, I found this to be incredibly uninspiring, because I think that this disregards the strength of a sexual assault survivor who wakes up in the morning and goes to class and sits in the same room as her attacker. This disregards the strength of a female athlete who wakes up before sunrise to lift weights, who literally is the physical embodiment of strength. And I think something that we don't always realize, but that is just as real, is that this discourages men from being vulnerable, which creates a lot of issues. It discourages men from talking about their feelings or struggles that they may be going through. And it ultimately can sort of discourage men from receiving help from issues ranging from depression to eating disorders because of the stigma associated with getting help for these issues. So I sort of want to talk about where I think these issues may stem from, what I've sort of called here a painful disconnect. So there was a survey that was done a few years ago that found that they sort of asked men to sort of say, you know, had they done, so they sort of like described events, and if yes, they had done them or no, they haven't. Found that about 8% of men in the survey committed acts that met the legal definition of rape or attempted rape. But out of those men, 84% of them said that what they committed was definitely not rape. So this shows that there's a severe disconnect between what men think is okay and what legally we define as being okay. The Bureau of Justice reports that 99% of perpetrators are male. This is overwhelmingly almost 100%. I think what this shows is that we think of rape and sexual assaults as women's issues, but they're really men's issues. There cannot be a solution that solely focuses on women. We need to really incorporate men. And I think that on college campuses, ignorance about what sexual assault is or what consent is can be a large contributor to the problems that we see on college campuses. So I want to talk about the solutions that I think can sort of maybe help alleviate these problems on campus. So I'm going to talk about tangible solutions in two broad categories, structural solutions and individual solutions. They're not comprehensive, but I think that they really can help improve the situation on campus. I think that the simple answer boils down to we need to create an environment on campus that is respectful of all individuals, regardless of their gender, their sexual identity, or their sexual orientation. So first I'm going to start to talk about structural issues. How do we try to come up with these solutions that address large populations of the student body? Here's a collection of events that have happened on campus in the past few years that have centered around issues of gender. I've attended all of these and I felt them to be very powerful events, but overwhelmingly the audience is female, which shouldn't really surprise us. I don't think that men are often encouraged to go and attend these events. But in many cases, I think they're the audience that could benefit the most from going to events like this. So my solution is that we should be sort of trying to mandate that these hyper-masculine communities, particularly male fraternities or male sports teams, are attending these events, are interacting with speakers who have experienced sexual assault, who've experienced eating disorders, who've experienced some sort of issue like this, and invite men into the dialogue on sexual assault, because there's no way that we can stop ignorance unless they are invited to contribute in a meaningful dialogue about these issues. So I sort of have an example that I love to talk about to show how education can really work is a few years ago, there was sort of a big debate among comedians about rape jokes and if they're appropriate. And Louis C.K. comes down and says, yeah, rape jokes are hilarious. I don't get why. If you don't think they're funny, it's because you're uptight. He sort of received a lot of backlash from this. And he actually said he sort of listened to what a lot of his female fans were saying and expressing. He started reading blogs that were detailing women talking about sexual assault and talking about rape. And what he says is that it made him enlightened to things that he didn't know. And that's a part of him now that wasn't there before. So I think this goes to show that a little education, I know this is just a solitary example, but really can have an impact on how men perceive issues that affect women. So now I want to talk about individual solutions. So I want everyone here to imagine an 8-foot brick wall. It's going to be hard for any one of us to clear this wall in one swift movement. But if we work individually, slowly, I'm sure that we could find crooks that we could slowly climb up and eventually be able to clear the wall. In fact, if we work together, we could probably do it a lot easier because those at the top of the wall would be able to pull up those at the bottom. I want you to think of this wall as a metaphor for sexism. We're not going to overcome sexism in this sudden flash of righteousness, as awesome as that sounds. It needs to be something that we work at together as a community and we take small steps to. So I think that fighting sexism is like many things in life. You get better at it with practice. So I'm going to encourage that we as a community, as individuals in this community, take small acts every day to fight sexism that can actually, over time, make a very large impact on the community. And I think that these actions need to be comfortable enough for each of us, no matter what they are, whether it's saying something small or giving a speech on sexual assault and sexism on campus. But you also need to push your boundaries because we constantly, if we want to make progress, we need to constantly be pushing ourselves to speak up more. But before I give examples of what individually we can do, I want to advise us to do these acts in a positive manner. I think that an issue that sort of alienates a lot of people from talking about issues of sex and gender is that there's a lot of hate and anger that comes out of doing this. It's very hard to listen to the story of a sexual assault survivor and to not become angry or upset. My own experience that I detailed earlier, I think that for me was an experience during which I felt a lot of sadness, a lot of confusing emotions. And I think that these emotions are normal, but we need to acknowledge them, but we need to turn them into something. We need to take the sense of self-hate or the hatred that's being put towards you or another individual, and you need to channel that into some sort of self-love. I think that's part of the healing process, is to turn something negative into something positive. And in my own experience, this sort of rebounded in me, creating this newfound sense of resilience and a sense of personal empowerment. So I really would like to encourage you to make the experience of improving the world around you to be a very joyous one. So I think part of this is initially, spread positive images and words. Be careful of the words that you use and the way that you describe people, because you are, whether you know it or not, you're the greatest influence on your friends. The way that you talk controls, is going to influence the way that others around you talk. So surround yourself with people who think positively, but also make sure that you are someone like that as well. And so my metaphor is that we can knock down the brick wall. But so I sort of wanted to give an example. One of my favorite issues, I thought one of the most ridiculous things that happened on campus was this article that ran in the Vanderbilt Hustler about the changing face of chivalry. This line just made me laugh a lot. I didn't think it's an accurate reflection of what life on campus is like, but apparently it is to some individuals. This one I thought went a little far, so I thought I would respond with my own status. And surprisingly, I found a lot of solidarity in the campus around me, and I actually had more than just the people who liked it or commented on it, the people who reached out to me to discuss these issues with me. And I think a lot of times we hold ourselves back from expressing our disgust or contempt with the situation, but when we do, we find that there are a lot of individuals who feel the same way as we do. So I want to encourage you to do small steps, whether it be take classes that are concerned with gender, or even in your regular class, focus your individual projects or papers on these issues. We can do this through history, philosophy, economics. You can really sort of pick and choose whatever the topic is. I think you can find a way to connect to these issues. I want you to remember that how you talk about others reflects on you. When we use these hateful words like slut, we create a really hostile environment for women, so we need to be conscious of the words that we use. And I want to just really encourage you to speak up and to speak out, whether that's in class, to your family, or to your friends. No matter what it is, it can also be hard. So honestly, a great way for me is I practice writing things down before I say them. It makes me feel more comfortable. Whatever it is that you need to do to help you sort of find your voice to stop sexism, because it should bother you, I hope, by the end of the speech. I want to just end with encouraging you to be strong in the face of sexism, to perform small acts to make a large, lasting impact, and to woman up and speak out. Thank you.